doing now?
Okay.
And he says, Doc, I hear ringing in my ears. He says, don't answer. Same guy goes to another doctor and says, you know, Doc, he says, I'd like an examination. Doctor examines him and says, you know, you're a healthy guy. He says, you'll make 80. Guy says, I'm 80 now. He says, see, I told you.
He's known around here for the joke. They know him. At breakfast time.
And what about that garbage
There was
truck?
a lucky guy in Mexico, very wealthy guy. And somehow or other he got the nickname Mr. Lucky. So one time in the middle of the night, he gets a phone call. Picks up the phone and says, yes. And the voice on the other side says, Mr. Lucky, this is Pedro, your summer house caretaker. He says, Pedro, what for you call me 4 o'clock in the morning? He says, oh, we got so much trouble. We got mucho trouble. He says, what kind of trouble? He says, you know that parrot that you bought, that prize parrot, the one you paid so much money for? He says, yes. He says, he's died. He died. How did he die? You mean you're talking about now the parrot that won all the prizes? He says, yeah, that's the one. He says, tell me, how did he die? Well, he went outside and he ate meat from the dead horse. And the meat was no good, and he died. He says, that's terrible, that's terrible. He says, whose horse was it? Whose dead horse? He says, it's your horse, your thoroughbred horse, the one you like to ride when you come up here. He says, my thoroughbred horse? How did he die? He says, he was pulling a heavy water wagon, and he pulled till he couldn't pull anymore, and he died. He says, that's awful, but tell me, why is a thoroughbred horse pulling a water wagon, a heavy water? What for? He says, to put out the fire. He says, what fire? He says, the fire in your house. He says, my house is on fire? Yeah. He says, how did that happen? He says, well, the candle on the table rolled off the table and rolled over to the curtain, and the whole house went up. He says, Pedro, why are you using a candle when we have electricity? He says, that's terrible, that's terrible. He says, well, why'd you use a candle anyway? He says, for the funeral. He says, what funeral? He says, your wife's from the funeral, she died. He says, my wife died, how did she die? He says, she came up here in the middle of the night, and I thought it was a burglar, and I took out your new Nike Tiger Wood driver, and I hit her over the head 4 times, and she died. Guys, Mr. Lucky is quiet. Then he comes back on, he says, Pedro, if you broke my new Nike Tiger Wood driver, you're in mucho trouble.